Hi everyone, it's Leanna with Little Lullaby Photography. I promised you all a tutorial on changing some colors in the image, like removing red from a newborn. And I wanted to go ahead and get to that today. I'm going to open this image here in Camera Raw, and I'm not going to make any adjustments here. I'm simply going to open the image. Alright, now we're simply focusing on fixing color in the newborn. So I'm not going to be editing the backdrop, removing blemishes, softening skin. I'm not going to be finalizing this image. The only thing we're going to be working on is color. The first thing I'm going to start with is by creating a hue and saturation layer. And coming up here, I want you to leave your preset to default, but in master, go ahead and select reds. Use your eyedropper tool and then bring your image up a little bit closer. Now, the whole point of this eyedropper tool is to select the most red part on your image. And typically that's around the lips, the fingers, or the toes. For me, what I'm seeing here, the most true red is kind of down here on her lip. So I've selected that. And then to see where that particular color shows up on the image, we take our hue and drop it all the way down. Now everything that you see here in blue is red, so quite a bit of the image. What we're going to do though is, because we only want to work with what we saw as red on this baby's face and body, we're going to take our temperature slider and slide it down to the left until we see only the areas of her selected that we want to alter or work with. And for me, right in there looks pretty good. Again, remembering blue is where it's the most red, so you see her lips and her fingers and her arm have a lot of blue. But as we scroll out, there's a good portion of this backdrop and all of this wrap that are blue as well. So keep that in mind. I want to show you the next step, but don't forget about the rest of this. So as we slide our hue back up, we're actually going to go past 0. We're going to take it, usually I go somewhere between 6 and an 8. If you go too far, what's going to happen is your image starts looking green, because the opposite of red is green. So we're going to go, I like an 8 for here. But as I mentioned earlier, you remember this whole thing was blue. So if we make that image or make that layer disappear, you can see the whole entire image is starting to look peachy, a little bit brown, really dull and blah. We don't want to remove the red everywhere, right? So what we're going to do is, with this layer, we're going to invert it. You know, I love my command button, so it's Command I for invert. And that changes that layer to black, which means we need a white paintbrush to paint it back on. And I'm going to go up to about 70%. Most likely I'm going to do it at 100 when I'm done, but there might be a couple places that I don't want to use 100%. And we're going to go ahead and paint on that layer, which basically means we're painting off the red. And you can see what a significant difference this is making in her face, but it's helping us to not change that background and make it quite so dull and bland and yucky. The beauty of layers, right? We've talked about this before. I'm shrinking it down around her fingers because I don't want to take the pink off of this pretty wrap layer. I also don't want to take it off of her lips. So be careful as you go around. You can always come back and do the opposite. No worries there, right? We've got a layer. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Her back here didn't have any red on it. If you remember when we were looking at the whole image, her leg did, and her face and her arms and fingers. Now, as I look at this image, I still see a lot of magenta down here. There's a little bit on her face, but mostly down here. So I'm going to create another hue and saturation layer. We're going to do the same exact thing, but rather than reds, we're going to go down to magentas, use our dropper tool, and you guys can pick a lot of what we do in Photoshop and photography, and all of it is based on what our eye sees, right? So I want you to go through and select what you feel is the most magenta looking, and then again drop that hue layer down, and take that temperature gauge down until we're selecting just what we want to. That looks pretty good to me. Very similar to the reds, you see a lot of the image selected, so we're going to invert again. Get our white paintbrush and paint, oops, sorry guys. Well, this is actually a good thing for you to know. If that ever happens, it means you didn't put your hue layer back up. So let's go ahead and put that back up to 8. And then we can continue on with our brushing. I'm going to drop this down just a little bit because I don't want a ton off of her face. There, that looks pretty good. I'm going to brush most of it off of her hands and arms and fingers. Can you see all this while it's happening? I know sometimes it's hard to see as you're doing something, so don't worry. I'm going to show you the before and after and what we've done. All right, that's about where I like it. Again, we're not talking about blemishes, softening skin, sharpening, nothing. We're just looking at removing the reds and the magentas from baby's skin. So I'm happy with this image, and I want you to see what the difference is. So here comes the before and the after. One more time, the before and the after. I hope this has been really something that you've been able to learn from and something that you can apply to your own images. Go try this on one of your images. If you have any questions, just send me a message on Facebook. I'd be happy to answer them. Hope you have an awesome day.